The truth about success nobody wants to admit. In this video, we're going to be talking about the fact that greatness takes time. And it's not a topic that's widely spoken about. It's not the sexy thing. See, I can't sell you on the fact that your success is going to take 5 years, 10 years, 12 years. You're not going to buy a product from me if it were going to take 12 years to execute. However, it's the reality. And I want to change your shifting and shift your mind around that because unfortunately, I'm seeing a lot of entrepreneurs, people who are very talented, not bring their ideas to the marketplace successfully, not because they're not capable, but more so because they stop before they get there. And it's a fundamental misunderstanding of what it is going to take to make it happen. It's an expectation issue. And I was listening to some Alex Hormozi. He's, by the way, if you guys don't know, he's one of the people that I listen to the most regularly. In 2025, his voice is going to be one of the most prevalent voices that I'm consuming via books, podcasts, whatever, YouTube videos. So, if you want to know where I'm getting information from, I'm just going to point you guys right to the source. I'm not gatekeeping at all this year. We are full transparency. We're giving it all away. I want to see you win more than you might even want to see yourself win. And so Alex was talking in a recent video that what he's been noticing a lot since starting the school games and becoming a part owner of the platform school is he's getting a lot of entrepreneurs who are coming in and they're making their first dollar online on his platform, which is really cool. But he's also seeing a lot of people not have any success, not break through. And he's been trying to figure out what is it that's causing the people who are not succeeding to fail. So ultimately he can fix it and help those individuals, ascertain their desires, hit their goals, make money, that sort of thing, so they can eventually sit around and, contemplate life alongside him and their millions and billions of dollars. And so he was looking into it, and what he found was a lot of people were setting big, hairy, audacious goals, which he commends. And I commend you as well. If you set big goals, because I'm a dreamer, guys, I don't think anybody watching my channel, I don't believe any of you stepping into entrepreneurship aren't also dreamers, because if you weren't a dreamer, you wouldn't be listening to a guy like me. You wouldn't be reading the personal development books and the business books. You wouldn't be spending your weekends and your nights looking at how to get better and journaling and all that kind of stuff. So, we're on the same page from that standpoint that it's good to be a dreamer. However, what you need to recognize is your dreams come at a cost. In fact, I wear a bracelet on my hand that says dreams come with a price. And what it was that Alex noted was people were aware of what it was they wanted, but they weren't necessarily aware of the cost associated to it, and they weren't looking to pay the price. And it was something like this, and I'm going to draw this out for you so you get a clear understanding. He said, imagine that you went to a store, like so you go to Foot Locker, okay, and you decide at Foot Locker you want a pair of sneakers, and let's say these are Nikes, these are a pair of Jordans, and you're like, I really want some Jordans. Cool. So when you get there, you find out the Jordans cost $300, but you only have $50. You only worked up $50, and that's all you have in your pocket. You don't have any credit card. You don't have the ability to borrow any money. $50 is all you have. So this is you over here, right? And you realize you only have 50 bucks. And what most people do is they walk out of the store and they say, well, I guess Jordans aren't for me. And effectively, this is just like going after your goals. See, the things that you desire in your life, your goals, let's call it that. Let's say your goals cost you 10,000 bucks, right? Or let's say 10 years, or let's say 10,000 hours, whatever you want to call it, right? Like, your goals cost you a certain amount, whether it's 10,000 bucks, 10 years, 10,000 hours, and you have only given it 2 years. You've given it 200 hours. You've invested 200 bucks in your coursework, whatever it is. So when you're in this position, do you look at it from the standpoint of the goal is not what you wanted? Or is it that you're more upset with the price that you have to pay in order to get it? Because the reality is, anyone that you've ever looked up to who's achieved any level of noteworthy success, if you're talking about basketball players, if you're talking about celebrities, actors, actresses, singers, and songwriters, and rappers, and musicians, it doesn't matter who you talk about, you see them today and you're watching the highlight reel of their life. You're watching them at the pinnacle of their career. You're watching them at the peak. But what you're failing to observe is the 12 years, the 15 years, the 20 years it took for them to get to that point. And I want to remind you and challenge you into thinking about the fact that you might not have come up with the amount that it costs to buy your dream yet. That's just the reality. So you still want the Jordans, you just don't agree with the price. But whether you agree with the price or not is irrelevant because the Jordans cost what the Jordans cost. Your goals cost what your goals cost. And this is important for you to understand. You still have to pay the price even if you don't like the price tag associated to the goal. And now, if you're saying that the price isn't worth it, then effectively what you're saying is that thing I want, I don't really want bad enough. I just kind of want it, which is okay. You don't need to want it bad enough. The reality is, not everybody is going to want everything bad enough. Like personally, I don't necessarily have the desire to become a multi-billionaire based on my understanding of the sort of work involved, the sort of responsibility involved. That's not for me in this lifetime. It might be for you, but it's not for me. So I'm not going to pay the price to get there. I'm not willing to pay the next 30 years of crushing relationships and showing up to work every like that's just not what I'm looking for. And it's up to you to determine, is it worth the cost? Now, I'm going to assume that you are someone who's more ambitious. I'm going to assume that you are somebody that says, yeah, you know what, Marlon, I really do want it. I do want to become a millionaire or a multimillionaire, and I want to do it by building my own business. Well, then let me enlighten you. Let me let you in on a little secret. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in your first year of ever doing business, in your first year of being an entrepreneur. And a lot of times we make the mistake of believing that it will because we're like, well, I watched somebody else on social media, on Instagram, on TikTok, and they said that they started this business in October of 2024, and it's now January of 2025, and they've already made $3 million, and they're brand new. Like they literally just started 3 months ago. And I would say, yeah, maybe they just started this business 3 months ago, but did they start business 3 months ago? And you say, well, I don't know. And I say, well, let's look it up. And when you look it up, what you find is this person has been doing business for the last 12 years, that this person is on their fifth business, that this person has had their teeth kicked in more times than they can remember. And you're comparing yourself, who is 6 months into entrepreneurship as a whole, you're comparing yourself to a person who has literally 12 times the experience as you. It makes no sense. Oh, I'm sorry. It'd be 24 times the experience as you. It makes no sense to compare yourself to that individual. Instead, if you are going to compare yourself to that individual, maybe compare yourself to where they were at their 6-month season, not where they are in year 12. And so I want to reframe your mind because I have to reframe my own mind constantly over and over and over. And I want you to reframe your mind to understand this, that 99% of the time, you are going to be in what we call a preparation mode. You're going to be practicing in private for what you will eventually be rewarded for in public. You got to understand that if a person's a professional athlete, whether it's NFL, basketball, baseball, hockey, whatever you want to say, there's only so much time that they're actually out there scoring points, right? And like that's what all of it leads up to. That's how you win the game, is by scoring points. Effectively, you would agree with me that in basketball, you don't win the championship ring unless you score more points than everybody else and then the other teams. And it's not even just playing defense. Like you actually need to put points on the board. So scoring points is how you win the game. And the amount of time that they spend scoring points in the actual game compared to the amount of time they spend practicing, scoring points in practice, the amount of time that they spend on their nutrition to make sure that their body is amply recovered, the amount of time that they spend training, that they spend working on themselves physically, that they spend watching game footage, that they spent dreaming about being in the league. You're going to realize that if we're looking at it as a ratio, it would be something like 90 to 99% of their time to the one. 99 to 1 is the amount of time that they were in preparation, that they were in pursuit of, that they were in the journey of getting to that magical moment that lasts for less than 1 second. I mean, think about it. When they shoot the ball, that moment literally lasts for less than 1 second between the ball leaving their hand and the ball swishing through the net. And that's the moment that everyone is so hyper focused on, and it becomes the only metric that you use for measuring whether or not you're on track, whether or not you're a success. And that, I want to argue, is a huge mistake. Because if that's your only metric for measuring success, then unfortunately you are saying that 99.9% of the time you are a failure. And if you walk around with the mindset of 99.9% of the time I'm a failure, that 0.01% for you to succeed will never occur because losers lose and winners win. You got to get that through your head. That needs to be crystal clear. And so, what I want to reframe your thinking around is understanding that the journey, the actual preparation is the success. The actual getting ready for the game, the actual, like, think about it. If I'm a salesperson, we say the success is closing the deal, but how much time is a salesperson actually spending closing deals? If they're a good salesperson, a majority of the time they're not just sitting there, like they're not just closing deals all day. You guys got to understand. Like when I was wholesaling real estate, I wasn't just locking up contracts 24/7. What was I doing? I was having to practice my script. I was having to research the properties. I was having to build rapport with the homeowners. I was having to generate leads. I was having to go and check the data. I was having to do all these things that lead up to the moment. And now all those things, when I look back in hindsight, what I realized is all those things were in fact me being a success. That the preparation, that the work being done in pursuit of the goal is the actual journey, is the success. It is the goal in and of itself. And being able to do that makes me a success. And so I want you to reframe your mind here for this entire year, for 2025 and going forward, for the rest of your career, the rest of your future. I want you to understand that the dream you want comes at a cost, and you saving up the money, you building up. And when I say saving up the money, I'm talking about the hours. I'm talking about the skills that you have to develop. I'm talking about the person that you need to become. That as you're building yourself up and you're accumulating the things in order that allow you to pay the price, that the accumulation of the skills, of the resources to trade for the goal, that is what makes you a success. That is what makes you the person that people later on are going to say, you're so lucky. It happened overnight. Anybody that tells you otherwise is trying to sell you something. They're trying to sell you a quick fix. I want you to get the idea of a quick fix out. And I want you to ask yourself this question. If the thing I'm pursuing, if the goal I'm going after, right now, you guys see, I'm getting a little worked up in here, right? I want you to think about this, right? Like, if we were to look at these Jordans, if the goal I'm going after were to cost me 10 times more, right? Like let's say those Jordans cost $3,000. If the goal were to cost me 10 times more, do I still want it? If the answer is yes, then that is a goal worth pursuing. And it doesn't mean that you quit because you only have $50. It means you start asking yourself, how can I? How can I make more? How can I go out and accumulate more? Because now I have a better understanding and expectation of what this is actually going to cost me. I'm not living in the world of disillusionment. Because if everyone could just pay what they wanted to pay, everybody would just instantly have what they want to have. And the reality is those things wouldn't be all that valuable if that were the case. If it were so easy that everyone could just instantly have it without putting any effort into it, would it hold any value to you? Ask yourself that question. If the thing you wanted to go after, right? Like imagine the person you wanted to date just said yes to everybody. Would you really want to date that person? Imagine the job you wanted, they just said yes to everyone. Like think about how overpopulated and overfilled that position would be. Now, it's open to everyone in the sense that everybody has the equal opportunity to go after it, but the cost that it will demand will weed out the people who don't truly want it. And understand this. If you truly want something, it means, right? Like successful people get this. They understand those people who are successful are willing to overpay for anything. What do I mean by that? They're willing to overpay. They are effectively willing to pay more than anybody else for their desired outcome. They're willing to pay more than you. They're willing to pay more than me because effectively what they say is it doesn't matter if it's $300 for the Jordans, $3,000 or $30,000 for the Jordan. I want it. I'll have it. I'll go and make the money to make it happen. I'll go and spend the time to make it happen. I'll go and acquire the skills. I'll make the trade. I will bargain any and everything that I have in order to get it. And if you think to yourself, that sounds crazy, that just means you're not one of the exceptional few who desire and covet this particular goal that highly. And that's okay. You need to go after what matters to you. So if you're looking at building a $1 million business or a multi-million-dollar business, let's bring it back and reframe it to why you're here. If you're like, I want to be a six-figure earner, I want to be a seven-figure earner, or I am a six-figure earner. Look, this is something that I sit down and when I work with clients pay me over $20,000 to teach them what I'm teaching you right now for free in this video. So pay attention. They want to get from, hey, look, I'm stuck. I'm only making about $80,000 a month. I want to be able to make $200,000 a month. And what we'll do is we'll sit down and I'll say, well, let me ask you this question. In order to get to that point of wanting to make $200,000 a month, are you willing to let go of the 80,000? Are you willing to let go of everything, of the expectation that it's going to come to you easily? Are you willing to let go of all the things that you acquired up until now and traded in to be able to make that? And some people, they struggle with it. They're emotionally attached to the price that they want to pay. They're emotionally attached to the life that they currently have, to the standards that are currently set, to the level that they're playing on, the level of the game that they're playing on, and they don't want to move into another level. In which case I tell them, like, look, you actually don't want that thing. Like, where are you getting the idea that you actually want this thing? And odds are, if you can't tell me where you got the idea that you want it, it's not your idea to begin with. It's somebody else's idea. And so you just kind of sort of want it. Like, look, I'm going to put it this way. If you want the goal, but you don't want to go through and grind for it, and you don't want to sacrifice for it, then you don't actually want it. There needs to be a full willingness. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean there's always going to be this crazy difficult grind, but there needs to be a willingness to go through it, right? It's kind of like getting into a relationship. It doesn't mean that the person you fall in love with is going to hurt you, but there's a willingness to be hurt by that person in order to get there. And if you're not willing to pay that price, if you're not willing to say, look, I didn't achieve the goal this year, but this goal is going to cost me 5 years, and you're not willing to stick with it for 5 years, you don't get to have it. And so when I pick goals, here's what I do. I pick goals that I want to achieve, whether it's going to take me 1 year, 10 years, or 100 years. I pick goals that I'm willing to trade quite literally my life for. Because what's going to happen, and let me go back to this board. Let me explain one more thing to you that's going to happen. I want to set the proper expectation that maybe no one's ever set for you. All right, let's look at this. You might find that you've experienced this before. So what I'm drawing is the ups and downs that most people experience on their entrepreneurial journey. And what ends up happening is you have, let's say at these peaks, you have like, hey, look, I've been going strong for 4 days. I'm all in. I'm gung-ho. I'm motivated. I'm excited. But then I hit down here and I have like a 3-day experience of I'm just out of it. I'm not feeling it. I'm not motivated. I'm not going to do the work. I doom scroll on social media. But then after that, after feeling like a piece of crap, I decide, you know what, screw that. I'm back in. And I get this like 5 days of like consistency and I'm locked in and it's winter arc, it's grind season. And then I'm back over here for another 3 days of like, I lost all my motivation. And we keep doing these ups and down, ups and down, ups and down. And what you got to realize is the cost of achieving what you want to achieve is these ups and downs are going to find you from a standpoint of motivation, from a standpoint of emotional energy, but it's going to require you, right? This is what professionals understand. It's going to require you that all throughout you continue to steadily move forward. Regardless of if you're at a high, doesn't matter. Regardless of if you're at a low, it doesn't matter. You continue to show up and pay the price. Because what your goal requires of you isn't always going to be what you necessarily want to give, because the price is what the price is, the cost is what the cost is. And so I just want to reframe this because it's something that I'm coming back to personally in my own journey. And so maybe because it's still top of mind for me, I feel like I want to share it, especially as we're here. I'm putting this video out in the beginning of January of 2025. So we're at that new year stage and that new year, new me. And I know a lot of people are going to start off up here where they've got these 4 days of hype and motivation. But I already know inevitably these 3 days are going to come because you're not special in the sense that the low times are a part of human nature. It's part of reality. They're going to come for you. But what you choose to do with those low times, that's on you. And so you need to mentally fortify your mind. You need to, the same way like I fortify my muscles to be able to withstand a marathon, because best believe entrepreneurship, it's a marathon. It is not a sprint. It is a marathon. Entrepreneurship, if you are thinking only in the terms of a few weeks or a few months or even a quarter or two, I can promise you, you are not thinking long term enough to achieve anything noteworthy, and you will burn out before you actually get there. Entrepreneurship is going to require you to think in years, decades, even. Most entrepreneurs, you're not going to begin to even hit your stride. I'm just telling you the truth. I'm just telling you as it is. You're not going to even begin to hit your stride until about year 3, year 4, year 5 is when you will start to finally gather what looks like some traction. And even then, to yourself, it probably won't feel like you're doing much. But you're going to begin to learn how to work. You're going to begin to cultivate a real work ethic at that point. And so entrepreneurship, it's going to require that you show up to this marathon and you keep running through the highs and the lows. It's going to require that you show up every single day, because that's the cost of your goal. That's the cost of your price. If you want to build it, like we had a podcast last week, and my buddy Sam, he said this. He said, look, I want to be honest and straight with you guys. Entrepreneurship and building $1 million business is not easy. It's simple, but it's not easy. There is work involved. And I want to, again, this whole video, the purpose of me being here is to reframe your expectation of the cost that your goal is going to have. The amount of time that you think it's going to take, I want you to go ahead and multiply that by 5. So if you thought it was going to take 5 months, what if it takes 25 months? Do you still want to do this? If you thought it was going to cost you $10,000, but it's actually going to cost you $50,000, do you still want to do this? Multiply the cost in your mind of what you expect it to be and make it 5 times more. And if you still want to go after it, awesome. I applaud you. I want to see you win. But if the idea of multiplying the cost by 5 says to you, I'm out, then here's the reality. You were always going to quit anyway. That was inevitable. So I need you to fortify your mind. The same way you fortify your muscles for a physical marathon in order to be able to run longer distances. Because what happens when you start to run? Like, how long is a marathon, guys? Like, let's look at this for a minute. A marathon is 20. Let's make that brighter. Let's go purple, actually. I like purple. And let's make that. All right, so a marathon, guys, is 26.2 miles. A marathon is 26.2 miles. And what happens when you start to think about a marathon? You can imagine in your mind, like you could think about a marathon, 26.2 miles, and you can fathom that mentally. You can conceptualize that mentally. But what's the reality of running the 26.2 miles? I've run marathons. I've run 100-mile marathons. And the reality is you have to play these little games with yourself to push through mile 1, to push through mile 2, to push through mile 3. You got to say to yourself, okay, I just got to run for another quarter mile. Okay, I just got to make it to that next light post. Okay, I just need to make it to that next block. Okay, I just need to make it up that hill. I just need to make it to that corner. You have to keep going inch by inch by inch. And all throughout, there are challenges. There's going to be moments where you hit walls, right? So there's going to be these moments where I hit a wall, low point. And then there's going to be these moments where I get a second win, high point. And then there are going to be these moments where my leg starts to cramp, low point. Then there's going to be these moments where I get a water station, high point. And then there's going to be these moments where I start to catch a cramp, low point. And there's going to be these moments where the crowd is cheering me on, high point. And all throughout, regardless of the highs and lows, what do I need to do? I still need to keep going step by step. I can't stop. I have to keep going step by step. And as a result of continuously running and going step by step, and you see this and you find this in the training and the practice, and this is actually what made me fall in love with running and why I use it so much. Even when I'm coaching my clients, I make my clients, all my clients become runners, whether they want to or not, whether they're young or they're old. I make them run because it's a physical representation of what happens internally to us when we begin to work on ourselves. Is as you start to run, when you first get out there and you run your first mile, maybe it takes you 15 minutes, you're huffing and puffing, and that's all the work you're capable of. The amount of work you're able to do, the amount of distance you're able to run is so limited. But by showing up and maxing out that amount of work, the next day when you show up to run again, you're able to go just a little bit further. And you do this over and over, and eventually your capacity to be able to run, your muscles build up a capacity to be able to work for longer and harder distances, and you don't experience the burnout. You don't get the injuries that occur from, let's say, if I just sat on the couch and then immediately after 3 years of sitting on the couch try to get up and run. And a lot of you guys, you're trying to do that with your business. After having sat on your ass for the last several years, you're trying to get up and build $1 million business in a weekend, and you can't. You physically don't have, you mentally don't have the bandwidth to make it happen because you have not worked that muscle. Your work ethic doesn't even allow you to stay focused for a long enough period of time to see it all the way through to the end. You actually don't have the capacity to work yet for 5 years, for 10 years straight. And the reason being is because you just haven't worked on that muscle. You need to fortify your mind. You need to constantly show back up and work on this. So I'm going to start to wrap this up because I want this lesson to stay with you. I want you to really understand this, that in 2025, it's going to require you to do all the preparation. It's like the preparation work. I want you to start measuring that as the victory. If you're showing up and you're preparing, that is the victory. If you're showing up and you're working on yourself in the hours that no one else is watching, that is the victory. So, guys, do me a favor. Let me know. This video was totally off the cuff. I was out just for a walk while I was working. I decided to take a quick midday walk, and this just came surging through my mind, and I felt just the urge to come here and to record this and to put this out. So let me know if this video resonates with you, if you like this style of content, if you like, just let me know. Give me some feedback in the comments below, whether it's good, bad, indifferent. I want to know what stands out to you. And 2025, make this your freaking year. Like, don't sit on your ass. Do not count yourself out, and do not give up. Keep this mantra in your mind. I cannot lose if I do not quit. Love you guys. I'll talk to you later.